Hey, everybody, I'm David with Bolivar Live. And once again, I'm here with Chandra. And, with your background, Chandra, it's all about building and structural integrity. But the county, whether you're in Harris County, Galveston County, in Galveston City, the city of Dickinson, Texas City, all their regulations on how to build stuff that y'all have to build it to those specs come from somewhere. Let's talk about the IBC and the IRC, and you can explain a little bit about what each is.
Sure. So there's two main codes that we designed to here. Other areas have other codes. Florida has its own code that's very similar, but it's the International Residential Code and the International Building Code, and they run in 3-year cycles. They get updated every 3 years. TDI has adopted the 2018 as their standard, and that kind of sets the tone for what other codes that we have to comply with as far as wind design, flood design, all like that. So that kind of sets the tone for what we have to do as a minimum. But other municipalities will actually adopt the most current version of a code. So we've had 2018, we've had 2021, they just adopted 2024. So some municipalities are going to be pushing 2024 as we move, the calendar year into 2025. Right. They'll say, okay, the 2024 code is now going to be the code that we're going to adopt.
The new standard.
The new standard, right. Now, we still have to meet all the minimums for TDI because that's their standard, right? So we end up looking at two codes. What are the differences between the two codes? Is there differences in wind design between the two codes? And then we have to see which one is more stringent because we have to comply with both. So right. We have to look and see which one's more stringent and then apply those regulations to our plan design. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky when we don't have consistency with everybody moving, code years.
Right.
Like you were saying, right now, like the city of Texas City has already adopted the 2024. So we've had to incorporate that. A lot of municipalities will do it at, January 1. They'll do a January 1 adoption of the most current code year. Some people may adopt a more current code year, but they may be going from 18 to 21 instead of making the jump all the way to 24. Right. So we actually keep a list of every single city and county that we work in and what their current code version is, because the very first thing we have to put on our plans is what code version are we working under.
Right.
So we have to put the code version, the wind speed, and that will vary based on the location, as well as the code version also dictates which wind map you have to look at. So we have two different wind maps we have to look at based on which code version we're using. So it gets a little bit complex. And one of the other things that's really complex is what they call exposure. So we have most everything, especially on Bolivar, is going to be an exposure C or an exposure D. Exposure C is like open areas, no trees, no obstructions, no structures higher than your structure, basically.
Right.
And then you have exposure D, which is open to the water, and it's a minimum of 600 feet from the structure to the water, or 20 times the height. So if you have a height that's, say, 40 feet times 20 is 800 feet. So that increases that distance that you have to be and not be in that exposure. And it just enhances how much we have to put into it to make it windstorm compliant. So there's lots of little things that you have to know about the different code variations. There's also other life safety issues like handrails. They've come out with a roof deck thickness requirement in some of the code versions. So you have to really study and see what the differences are, what's really going to affect the construction that we're doing along the coast in order to know how to apply those things. And it's every 3 years. It seems like that's, a big distance, but it's really not. It's like you're constantly learning. And I think all of the plans examiners for these cities and counties go to the same school and learn all the same little things, because if we get comments back, we get that same comments back like that first little bit after the first of the year when they make a code change. And we end up seeing all these same comments come back to us that we have to fix, and then we have to change our plan set, and then we have to make sure we incorporate it in the future as well. So it's really funny.
Is that something that y'all have to plug into your, your programs when you're drawing and stuff, so that it's up to date also? So it's not just keeping you informed. You have to keep the computers and everything else informed too.
Yeah. We actually were talking about, we had a little engineering powwow earlier this week, and we were talking about what the 2024 code change really looked like and how we were going to modify our design program, because a lot of the things that we've been doing the last 6 years in the current code has changed. It's going to go back to the way it was back under the 06 version of the code, which was a really, honestly, of all the code versions I worked under, I would like the 06 the best. It was maybe I would say a little bit more restrictive, but it was very safe. It was a very safe code. It was a very good code, and honestly, that's what most of our buildings were done under after Hurricane Ike. It was the IRC IBC 2006, and it had the ASE 705 wind design manual, and those two codes together were like perfect. That was really, really good code. And then they upgraded, of course, both of them, changed both of them, and now it's like, okay, well, it's different. One of the hardest things that they did, the ASCE code follows the IRC and IBC code. That's the wind design manual. That code has, instead of just having 3 zones on the roof, it's got like 6 zones on the roof. It's got it's got all the main roof zones, but then you have all these edge zone conditions that it really, really jacked up the roof pressures. It makes it really hard to do a lot of like metal roofs and things like that. The attachments got just ridiculous. So it just made it harder to find products that would work when you're wanting to use something besides a shingle, because shingle has a limitation. It's never going to meet 150, 160 PSF, edge conditions, but they're the most prevalent roofing material.
It's funny. You and I have talked about the strong home inspection program. We've talked about the what's the building program?
Fortified.
And it seems like everything always turns back to the roof. You were talking about the roof.
It's the roof.
It's funny. I was just thinking, there's that word roof again. Yes. But it's funny. That's sort of, even though it's the top, that's really the heart of your house, because if you lose your roof, or if you get a leak in your roof,
it trickles all the way through it.
That's right.
All the way down. Yeah.
You're talking sheetrock and furniture, and I remember the conversations we had on the strong home inspection program and the other things. Man, you can bust a window, you can lose a handrail, but if you can keep that roof intact, you can move back in your house a lot of times.
That's right.
Are
you selling that for me, David? That's exactly right. I mean, it's keeping the roof deck sealed so that we don't have, your shingles may be in the Gulf of Mexico. Who cares, right? As long as you don't have water coming in through all those little cracks in the plywood, wrecking your sheetrock, destroying all your valuables, making it impossible for you to live there, getting everything wet. It's awful. So the fact
I'm going to go buy a giant shrink wrap machine, because if I can seal my house before I leave, if I have to evacuate,
exactly,
I just cut the shrink wrap and move right back in. I can always take a ladder up the stairs. And during Ike, some of the homes on the Bayside, the bottom was gone, the stairs was gone, the electrical box was gone, but they were able to stay at their house and run off a generator, and they went around, and it might have taken them 2 or 3 days, but they capped all the electrical off, and they were able to bring water in and pump, and they were able to stay in their house and watch the neighborhood, right after Ike, and then they rebuilt and started a little bit at a time. But I was just, when you were talking about the roof and the different zones on it, that R word again, you know,
Yep.
and it
It's that
comes
R word.
back to the man. If you can keep your roof intact, you're good to go. And so, yes, the fortified building. And then once
Well, the
you
good
get
news is, David, y'all don't have to know all that stuff, right?
right,
That's what you hire me for. Like, I'm the one that has to know all that stuff. All you have to know is just like, yeah, that's definitely the way to go, is to
well,
do something to get the roof on. But it's Chandler's job to, figure out how to
there we go.
how to make that happen.
Well,
Sitting in the dark again.
I guess what I'm trying to tell people is, and we've talked about this. If you're going to get a new roof, go ahead and have it, because you don't have to build the whole house as a fortified home.
Absolutely
Build
not.
it to the fortified qualifications. You get a little discount on your insurance. Then once a year, have them come in and do the strong home inspection program, which verifies that that's right. Your handrails, your windows, everything's right. Yes, I'm selling it for you right now.
Majority of people aren't contractors. They're not builders. They may not even be handy, right?
Yeah.
So they may not even live there. So the fact that they can have somebody independent just go by, check everything out, give them that peace of mind, give them a little checklist of things that they need to work on, correcting kind of these are, normal maintenance. These are things to watch. These are like critical, do them now kind of thing. But that will give them a baseline of things that they need to do. It decreases their liability and makes it where they can have that peace of mind, going, into a summer season, into, rental season, spring season, whatever. But it also gives them a baseline for something happens during one of these storms, But the good news is almost every house that was rebuilt after Ike, those houses are so much better than they were, say, anything prior to that, because the code that they were built under is, I would say, the best code. And then the code that we've had the last maybe 4 or 5 years is okay. It's still good. It's still a good code, but I think the one prior was maybe a better code. Okay. So, and that's the thing. I'm giving everybody the minimum requirements.
Right.
That's all I'm required to do, is design to the minimum standard. If somebody wants to go above and beyond that, I'm all for it, but that's the thing. It's like, the code is just the minimum standard. It's not, a heightened standard or that's what fortified is. That fortified is that little bit better standard. But the codes are meant to be the minimum standard. It's the minimum standard for life and safety, the minimum standard for wind design, structural design, all that. So,
well, if it and back to the fortified, yes, it's probably going to cost you a little bit more, but you get the discount from your insurance when it's built or done to fortified, don't you?
Yes.
And so,
as long as you get
the documentation,
and we can get you a fortified certificate on it. We have a lot of insurance agents that we work with that know how to get you those discounts, and it pulls you out of the Toyota pool.
Right.
So you don't have to have fleet insurance.
Yeah, we need to do a show, and it's probably one we'll have to break down, as to what the differences are between the regular code and the fortified code, and take like the roof and talk about, and we can use some graphs and stuff maybe in 2025, because you take care of your roof, you can move back in your house if you evacuated, or if you didn't evacuate, you don't have to put a bunch of pots and pans everywhere catching water as it runs down and worry about mold down here. So
yeah, you can make a good gumbo instead.
Yes. So, well, Chandra, thanks for joining us and talking to us about that today. I think next week's Christmas, or we're rolling into Christmas, so I'm thinking a Christmas show next week. So we'll have to see what happens. So we're going to head on out. Until next time, I'm David with Bolivar Live. Y'all have a great day, great week. Come see us. God bless, and bye-bye.